Kantian ethics are some of the least understood and probably the most poorly taught topic in many ethics courses. And I hope to set out something of why that might be the case in the next few minutes. Kantian ethics are often portrayed as being all about duty, about the mindless following of rules, about inflexibility. It's an almost inhuman system in the way that it's portrayed in some textbooks, but nothing could really be further from the truth. Yes, Kantian ethics is about duty, but the word duty in English has a whole lot of different connotations from those that it has in German. In English, we think of duties as being sort of arbitrary chores that people are given on rotas, supervising younger students at school perhaps, or patrolling a playground in a sort of futile way. Basically wastes of time, annoying little things that we have to get out of the way, or hoops that we have to jump through. In German, the word Pflicht, which Kant uses for duty, has a lot more to do with the Greek word deontos. Deontos is the participle of the Greek verb eine, which means to be. Of being is the literal translation. And basically deontos means duty in the sense that it's a function of being. Pflicht means the same, a function of being. So it would be right to say, for example, that it's a seagull's duty to fly, or that it's a sheep's duty to eat grass, or a pig's duty to roll in mud. These things are part of their nature, and unless they do these things, they're less than fully what they could be. So Kantian concepts of duty rely on a concept of human nature, and in this it gets close to Aristotelian ethics, to things like natural law and virtue ethics. For Aristotle, something is good when it fully fulfills its nature, and indeed a human being is good when they're fully what they have the potential to be as a human being. And like Aristotle, Kant attempts to define human nature and suggests that we're best or good when we fully actualise our human nature and we fulfil our potential. But Kant has a very different understanding of human nature from most Aristotelian thinkers. He reduces humanity to being rational and being free. If we act, for Kant, rationally and freely in every situation, then we are fully human. He doesn't get dragged into the pitfalls in natural law of defining human nature in terms of things that we do. So whereas natural law, for example, would say that part of being fully human is to have children, or part of being fully human is to develop one's knowledge, or to contribute to society in some way, Kant realises that this is quite a restrictive and dangerous path, one that suggests that somebody who can't have children, for example, or who has difficulties because they live in a war-torn society, that would suggest that they're somehow evil or bad or fail to be fully human. For Kant, he reduces this definition of humanity right down to these basic principles of being free and rational in the way that we make our decisions, and suggests that somebody who is free and rational in their decision making is a good person, regardless of, I suppose, who they are or their personal circumstances. But being free and rational in our decision making is not entirely easy. Many of our decisions come out of fear or habit, or just are basically thoughtless. And for Kant, this is where sin or evil, our being less than fully human, comes in. For Kant, being good is not easy at all, and in fact it would be difficult to say that anybody is fully good. How many of us could say that none of our actions ever have been motivated by habit, that we've fully thought through and been conscious and engaged with every decision we've ever made? It's a really tall order to be good in the Kantian frame, and that's something which we'll have to return to later. However, he also felt that it's not easy always to understand what is the most rational course of action, and he felt his job as a moral philosopher was to help to point people towards how a rational person would make a decision in a free way. And in 1785 he developed a pamphlet called The Groundwork for the Metaphysics of Morals that attempted to set out in a sort of concise way exactly how a rational person would act in a free way given a moral situation. Now, the philosopher Alan Wood, a great Kantian scholar in the United States, has written that many people have an allergic reaction to Kantian ethics, and that the groundwork for the metaphysics of morals is what occasions their first sneeze. It's a rather dramatic way of putting it, but I think he's right on the mark. The groundwork for the metaphysics of morals is concise, it's short basically, but it's not an easy book, and it's designed to be controversial. It's designed to get people talking, and it uses moral dilemmas as a way in to get basically arguments going amongst Kant's fellow scholars and indeed scholars today. So how does Kant go about trying to describe the principle on which a rational free being would act? Kant calls this principle the categorical imperative. This is the basic same principle that all rational people would use. Basically what he's saying is that any rational person given a same situation is going to come to the same sort of a decision. So, for example, a rational person will appreciate in a case of euthanasia that what they're doing is taking another human life. And similarly, in a case of suicide, they're taking another human life. And similarly, in a case of capital punishment, taking another human life. A rational person is going to see the commonalities in these principles and will act according to the same principle in every case. And Kant suggests that taking a human life is a principle that a rational person couldn't accept, and therefore that they would act in a particular way to reject euthanasia, to reject suicide, to reject capital punishment because of their common principle behind. So the categorical imperative is what governs our moral actions, that is, what affects other people. Kant distinguishes categorical imperative from what he calls the hypothetical imperative. That's just practical decisions that affect nobody but ourselves. So, for example, if I want to catch the train, I should leave now. This isn't a decision that affects anybody else, unless, of course, I've promised to meet somebody, in which case it becomes something which is subject to the categorical imperative. So the hypothetical imperative, decisions that don't affect anybody else. The categorical imperative, all decisions that affect other people and therefore are moral.